I just saw a video of a woman who had just gotten Botox and she was showing how different facial expressions looked on her. And it was funny because obviously she couldn't really move her face. But that just reminded me of how Botox is the modern silencing of women.
Botox doesn't just silence women by freezing their face and therefore making it look like they're not showing emotion. It actually restricts their ability to feel and experience emotions. Let me tell you about it. To understand where I'm going with this, we have to go back to 1988 to a classic psychology study now known as the pen in the mouth study that gave evidence for the facial feedback hypothesis. I'm going to demonstrate it to you with a pen in my mouth. Long story short is participants either had to hold a pen in their mouth like this or like this. This way mimics a smile. What they found was that for participants who were kind of tricked into making a smile, they actually experienced more happiness, more positive emotions, rated cartoons as funnier. And so the takeaway of this is that our facial expressions can actually directly shape our emotional experiences. Our brain is constantly processing our own bodily sensations to make sense of and understand our emotional state. And now you might think 1988, it's a one-off study, that sounds like embodied cognition, blah, blah, blah. Nature recently published a multi-lab test of this facial feedback hypothesis. This study pulled data from 19 countries, and they found evidence that indicates that facial mimicry and voluntary facial action tasks could both amplify and initiate feelings of happiness. So it's not just that how we're feeling internally shapes the way that we present emotions externally, but also the way that we present our face and our body externally can shape how we feel internally. Now, I think you can tell where I'm going with this. If you've been here before, you know that I study and I talk about the objectification of women. And I talk about how when women self-objectify, it is very literal. We lose access to our body sensations, our feelings, our emotional states, and that's just from focusing on our external appearance. That's just because when we take a third-person perspective of our body and monitor how we look, it comes with the trade-off of thinking about how we feel because our cognitive resources are limited. Add into the mix doing something that's self-objectifying, like getting Botox, right, to enhance our appearance, to fit a standard, a beauty standard of what women should look like. Add into the mix that Botox literally restricts our facial expressions. Add into that mix what I just shared with you about when we limit our facial expressions, we actually limit how we feel. So feminist researchers have been talking about this forever. I'm going to pull from this book chapter on objectification theory and emotions. They explicitly made this link to Botox. I'm going to read directly. This self-objectifying practice may, in a very real way, not only limit women's ability to express such emotions as anger, but it may also profoundly affect their ability to feel them. Now let's look at this Nature report that finds an interaction between getting Botox and experiencing embodied emotion. I'm going to read right from this on my computer. It was hypothesized that treatment of crow's feet or laughter lines would reduce mood as patients' Duchenne smiles would be impaired. It was hypothesized that facial Botox treatments would impair emotional expression recognition because the ability to mimic emotions would be reduced. Finally, it was hypothesized that as Botox treatments prevent facial expressions associated with sexual excitement, sexual function would be impaired after treatment. What do you think they found? They found that Botox treatment of laughter lines was associated with increased depression scores, and that Botox treatment was associated with reduced emotion recognition ability and sexual function. Now, the problem is all of those things, sexual dysfunction, depressed mood, inability to recognize emotional states, are already outcomes of self-objectification, regardless of if you get Botox or not. Adding Botox into that mix that renders us literal objects and creates that barrier to emotional awareness and emotional experience just amplifies the consequences that we already experience simply because we are women that live in a culture that objectifies us. So now what? I'm less interested in judging women who get Botox than I am in questioning and trying to identify why as a culture we are so obsessed with women becoming smoother, younger, quieter, less expressive, and more self-silenced, as the original creator said. Much to consider on a Saturday morning, that's for sure.